Arizona contests their election results as people start to wonder whether or not the Sharpie that they were given invalidated their ballots, so we'll talk a bit about that. Michigan is being contested right now as the Secretary of State's website shows Donald Trump far winning, but the Associated Press continues to show the state going to Joe Biden. Wisconsin could be headed down for a recount in a lawsuit as Joe Biden supposedly comes 20,000 votes ahead. And violence erupts in Portland. But that's not the name of the article. That's the price of admission for Headed for Portland. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got a bunch of stuff to get to, a bunch of weird stuff to watch here, some interesting stuff coming up from the American Southwest. But the big part for me is the fact that, once again, I feel human after not sleeping for a couple days due to Election Day and doing the long stream there and tripping over every word that came out of my mouth the other day. I am feeling human. We are ready for some news, and we've got some stuff to talk about here. But before we do anything, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as the R-Rated Conservative, the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the Freckles and Brit Show, and the Generational Gap. Come on over, check out our shows, check out all my friends, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators. All right, let's have a look at the stocks, which seem to be, they keep going up left and right. We had another update, even though the page reloaded now and we can't see what the update was. We had another update, and both IBD and Fox News are telling us that it's looking like it could keep going up, especially as Joe Biden edges out and ekes towards what they think is going to be a win, and we will see what happens with that. But yes, definitely another increased day as we went along to the Dow. Let's see what IBD has to say. Archived because they won't let me get behind the paywall. It sort of goes back and forth as to whether or not I can get behind the paywall, but today they don't want me to. All right, but from IBD, Dow Jones today, techs dominate as Biden edges towards 270. Microsoft upgraded. Apple's chip draft. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but this is from Alan R. Elliott. Stock futures rolled up their sleeves and prepared to push their rally to a third day as U.S. presidential and Senate election results began to grow more clear. Tech stocks continued to drive the advance, although markets had an eye on this morning's weekly jobless claims data and later in the day, the Fed policy announcement. Qualcomm and Mercado Libre rallied hard on earnings. Apple and Salesforce drove the early gains, and Dow Jones today. NASDAQ 100 futures rallied 2.6%. Dow Jones futures climbed 1.4% above fair value, with about half the index rising more than 1%. S&P 500 futures jumped 1.8%. Small caps continued to slightly lag in the overall market, with Russell 2000 futures rising 1.3%. Chipset maker Qualcomm spiked nearly 15%, leading the NASDAQ and S&P 500 as multiple analysts hustled to raise the stock's price target after a strong quarter three report and bullish guidance late Wednesday. Shares ended Wednesday in a buy range, but were set to open well beyond that buy range if pre-market gains held up on Thursday. Mercado Libre ran 6% higher as Barclays raised the stock price target after the company reported a second straight quarter of triple-digit earnings gains and 85% jump in third-quarter revenue late Wednesday. Active users of the Argentina-based online marketplace rose 92% to more than 75 million. The stock ended Wednesday in a buy range above a 1,269.10 buy point. Today, Microsoft, Apple, and Salesforce all jumped more than 2% in pre-market action on the Dow Jones today. Oppenheimer upgraded Microsoft stock to outperform and slapped a 2650 price target. The note said improved relations with China under a Biden presidency. Come on, man! The note said improved relations with China under a Biden presidency because Biden's getting paid off by China. Holy shit. They're not even trying to hide it. would be positive for the software giant, and an outlook for continued low interest rates boosts the appeal of the company's 3% rate of free cash flow. Apple jumped 2.5% despite news reports saying the manufacturer was under pressure from a lack of power chips for its iPhones and was cannibalizing iPad components to prop output for its iPhone 12 model. Salesforce.com popped 2.8% after announcing it would report its third quarter results on December 1st. Jobless claims. Market action today could see some impact from economic news ahead of Friday's closely watched October payrolls report. Weekly jobless claims data are due out from the Labor Department at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. In addition, markets will have their eye on this afternoon's Federal Reserve policy announcement as the Federal Open Market Committee wraps up its two-day meeting. No change in target interest rates as expected, but outlooks and stimulus strategy could see some adjustments. The policy announcement is set for 2 p.m. Eastern Time to be followed by a press conference with Fed Chief Jerome Powell at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Nothing on the futures, though, so we will move on from this here. Going on now to Fox Business. NASDAQ S&P 500 post-election gains best ever despite chaos. From Chris Siacha. Stocks closed higher despite giving back a bulk of earlier gains after Fox News projected Biden has won Wisconsin. Investors also waiting on final tallies for the Senate after the Democrats maintained control of the House. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained more than 300 points, or 1.3%, after rising over 700 points earlier, while the S&P 500 was up 2.2% in its best post-election day ever. Health insurance stocks, including Dow member United Health, rallied in a broad advance. Yeah, because you're going to be legally required by threat of fine to have health insurance again. Of course, their stocks are going to go up. The NASDAQ Composite rose over 3.8%, also the best post-election day performance ever. Large-cap tech companies such as Facebook, Apple, Alphabet, Twitter, and Amazon may be benefiting from the failure of a Democratic sweep in the House and Senate, which could have prompted tougher regulatory actions, say investors. Yeah, they were going to regulate. You can't put anything up critical of us because we might throw you in prison, which if Biden and Kamala win, this microphone here is probably going to be going away, and so is your host. But that's what we're seeing up off the stock. Oil is stabilizing. Job growth is slowing. Election is drilling down. So we'll see what happens off of this. Let's have a look at the map. So, as of right now, 264 to 214. If everything goes the way that it is projected currently, 6 votes brings Joe Biden up to 270. Nevada being very, very highly contested right now and still counting. Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia and Alaska bringing Trump to 268. So it would be a literal almost tie with 1 to go. If everything goes the way that they are saying that it will. But we're seeing contests and contested elections here and here. And even here right now. So, I don't know what's going to happen off of this. And I don't know where this number is going to land. I have a feeling it's not going to be 268 to 270. And I don't know, man. From some of the stuff that I'm seeing up in the news stack here, I got a feeling that it's going to be going the other direction at some point too, if all of this comes out. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. All right, let's start out talking about the records from CBS News. Excuse me. Joe Biden breaks Obama's record for most votes ever cast for a U.S. presidential candidate, from Sophie Lewis. In 2008, Barack Obama earned 69,498,516 votes in the presidential election, the most ever. Now, Mr. Obama's former vice president, Democratic nominee Joe Biden, has surpassed that tally with a record 70,400,000 470,207 votes, 50.3%, and counting in the 2020 election. Biden is currently leading the popular vote against President Trump, who has collected 67,280,936 votes, 48.0% as of Wednesday afternoon. The race for the White House continued to narrow Wednesday, hinging on just a few battleground states, that are still too close to call. With millions of votes not yet counted, it's possible both candidates will break Mr. Obama's record, set in the race against Senator John McCain, thanks in large part to record early voter turnout during the coronavirus pandemic. Once again, right there, that's what I think of that. Winning the popular vote does not secure the election. My popular vote! Oh my God! I won the popular vote by 3 million votes. I'm the president! Get your straitjacket, Aunt Hillary. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes, but still lost the election to Mr. Trump. As of midday Wednesday, Biden has collected 227 electoral college votes, and Mr. Trump has 213, which is different from what the Associated Press just told us. Mr. Trump exceeded expectations on Tuesday, securing several large battleground states, including Ohio, Florida, and Texas, which Democrats had hoped could flip blue this year. The number of legally cast, but yet to be counted ballots in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan are boosting Democrats' hopes. Biden appears likely to win Arizona. We'll talk about that, which hasn't voted for a Democratic presidential candidate since 1996. We'll talk about that. Speaking at the White House in the early hours Wednesday, the president falsely claimed that he had won the election. I won the election. It was me. I won it. I had the greatest election. And vowed to challenge the continued counting of legal ballots all the way to the Supreme Court. Biden's campaign called the remarks a naked effort to take away the democratic rights of the American citizens. Come on, man. Nevada, Arizona, Alaska, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania have not yet finished counting the ballots. Find full results for all the races in the CBS News Election Center. No. We already got lied to by the AP, so why the hell would I go to CBS Election Center? Now, I've seen some other people talking over on Twitter saying, oh, come on, you can't expect me to believe that Biden got more votes than Barack Obama. And honestly, yeah, I can. Now, I wouldn't say that lightly, but yeah, I actually can expect you to believe that because, a lot of this goes along with the same reason that Freckled Liberty has such a massive following over on her page. It's not just the people who are fanboying and simping over her, of which there are many. Don't get me wrong, there are many. And it's not all the people that are actual fans of her ideals, of which there are many. But there are a ton of hate follows that go along with her. A bunch of people that follow her just so they can be the first one to go and challenge her ideas on abortion and leaving people the fuck alone and taxation. She has hate follows left and right. And from what I've seen from the rhetoric that goes around this election, I don't believe Biden won, but I do believe that he got a lot of Trump's hate votes. I absolutely 100% believe that there were a lot of hate votes for Trump sitting up in that stack for Biden. Not necessarily people that want to see Joe Biden. You know the thing, man. Be president. But more so that they don't want Donald to be. Any path necessary, which partially comes along with the shaming of third-party votes, which we're seeing a lot of right now. So, yeah. I believe that he could break a record for this. I absolutely 100% believe that he could break a record for the number of votes cast because there was so much hatred coming up in this election from both sides. So we will see what happens off of this here as we keep moving down the stack. I got a few here about Arizona, including a PDF over what they were showing as far as votes counted when they called the election for Biden. But we will start with Arizona 12 News NBC. Nation watches Maricopa County ballot counts updates. Author 12 News. While the Associated Press called Arizona for Joe Biden just before 1 a.m. on Wednesday, votes continue to be counted in the state. The race is getting closer, and new ballot counts are dropping. Maricopa County, the largest county in Arizona, updated vote counts around 1 a.m. Thursday morning. Joe Biden currently leads President Trump in Arizona by 68,390 votes, a lead that narrowed. The nation's eyes are on Arizona as Biden can secure the election with Arizona and Nevada, where he's also currently leading President Trump. Conversely, Trump either needs to flip Arizona or Nevada his way, in addition to winning Georgia and Pennsylvania, where he holds slim leads as votes continue to be found in emergency boxes in the trunks of cars. Counted. After the 1 a.m. update, Arizona still has 275,000 uncounted votes. The Associated Press called the race for Biden at 12:51 a.m. on Wednesday, with him leading Trump by 2 points, with 100% of precincts reporting, which is impossible because they still have 275,000 uncounted votes. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey is urging patience and said earlier Wednesday that he wants all of Arizona's voices to be heard. Arizonans turned out in historic numbers for this election, and we owe it to them to count their votes, Governor Ducey said in a statement on Wednesday. The results have shifted greatly hour by hour and from last night until today, with hundreds of thousands of votes still outstanding. It's important that we be patient before declaring any races up or down the ballots. Arizonans have cast their votes, and we need to make sure all their voices are heard fairly and accurately. So, Arizona's still saying that they go for Biden. They're still saying that he has a lead. I am not sure about that here, but now moving on to the Associated Press. Fact-checking. Ballots marked with Sharpie pens were not invalidated in Arizona. Start your day with AP Morning Wire. No. From Beatrice Dupuy. Claim votes were eliminated in Arizona because people were made to use Sharpie pens to mark their ballots. This caused the tabulation machine to cancel the vote. AP's assessment, false. Sharpies were allowed in Arizona, but they do not affect the vote. Even if a ballot could not be read by a tabulation machine, it would be reviewed by a board that re-examines the ballots. The vote would not be canceled. The facts. Following the race call on Wednesday, the Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden had flipped the Republican stronghold of Arizona. Social media posts circulated suggesting that their votes for Trump were canceled because they were told to use Sharpies at the polling place. Arizona election officials confirmed that Sharpies were allowed and that they would not invalidate a ballot. The Maricopa County Elections Department tweeted on Election Day that voting centers use Sharpies so that the ink does not smudge when ballots are counted. New offset columns in the ballots means bleed won't impact your vote, they tweeted in an informational video. One video with more than 821, I think they put an extra zero there, can confirm because this would be 8,210,000, but where the comma is could be 821,000 instead. But we'll figure that one out. That's less important, but a nice typo anyway. Views shows a woman speaking about how 4 different polling places were using Sharpies, and a man asks her if those ballots are not being counted and are invalid. They are invalidating votes, is what they're doing, the man says. He went on to suggest voters use a ballpoint pen instead. I didn't do that either. I used fountain pen. People are coming here to vote for Trump, and all those votes are getting invalidated, he says in the video. Sophia Solis, a public information voter for Arizona Secretary of State, said in an email that votes should not be canceled if there was an issue with the ballot. According to the state's election procedures manual, a ballot review board duplicates ballots, which cannot be read by the machine. That's interesting. Those are words that you don't want to be seeing in a contested election right now. This may include crumpled or otherwise damaged ballots, the ballots with smudged ink, or ballots which are marked in the wrong color of ink, or with a device that cannot be read by the tabulation machine, the manual states. So, as of right now, with everything going in here, with Arizona being contested the way that it is, I would actually like to see a hand recount in Arizona. Not because I want to wait for the results. I kind of have a feeling that I know where it's going to go if they get the results. But if they're so sure of the fact that the ballots aren't being counted, then yeah, let's sit down and do our hand recount. Let's go back and see what this means going forward and what actually came out. Let's have human eyes on something like this with poll watchers as well. So that's what they're saying off of this from the AP. But once again, from 12 News. Arizona voters file lawsuit against Maricopa County elections officials for canceled ballots. An attorney filed a lawsuit Wednesday on behalf of several voters in Maricopa County alleging that the use of a Sharpie permanent marker at polling places across the county disenfranchised voters, a conspiracy that has been debunked. Attorney Alexander Colladin represents a voter identified as Lori Aguilera, as well as 10 unidentified Arizona voters in a suit against Maricopa County Recorder Adrian Fontes, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, and more. According to the suit, Aguilera visited her polling place on Election Day and she was given a Sharpie to fill out her ballot. Plaintiff completed her ballot with the provided Sharpie. You should always bring your own pen. Everybody should always have your own pen. I don't understand why so many people don't have a pen. While completing it, she noticed the ink was bleeding through, the suit reads. It goes on to say that the machine failed to read Aguilera's ballot, and those poll workers would not provide her with a second ballot, nor a duplicate ballot, when the ballot was not read. She believes her vote was not counted. I should just know that when I put my ballot into the machine and I follow the instructions, it gets counted. And it gets counted perfectly, Colladin said on Wednesday night. Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs has said on several occasions that using a Sharpie to fill out a ballot is perfectly fine. The Maricopa County Elections Department even released this YouTube video on October 24th saying the same, but we're not going to watch it because we're transmitting on YouTube and that's going to ding copyright. Wojcicki is watching for anything that she could shut down for election. By the way, follow me over on DLive, Periscope, and Twitch. Both the extensions on DLive and Twitch are Ed's blog Twitter, just in case. The Maricopa County Elections Department said Wednesday it could not comment on pending litigation, but in an interview conducted earlier on Wednesday with spokeswoman Erica Flores, Flores said the department actually prefers Sharpies. Those Sharpies are the ones we provided at vote centers because they're fastest drying ink, Flores said. Even so, the suit claims that the use of Sharpies may have prevented many ballots from being counted by vote tabulating machines, and that the lack of machines tabulation is guaranteed by state law. So, we will see what comes out of this lawsuit. I'm actually interested to see what the technology says, because I was always told that a Scantron requires a number 2 pencil, not ink, and not a Sharpie. But I've got a PDF here that I kind of want to share with you as well, because they called Arizona very early at about 1 a.m. They started saying it was leaning Biden via the Associated Press. But I want you to look at these numbers here. This is November 3rd, 2020. According to the PDF generation, was at 9:46 p.m. That is going to be Mountain Standard Time, 11/3/2020. Election Day precincts reporting 49 to 49. Election Day 49. And then, of course, we've got the early voting and provisional. Precincts partially reported 49. Absentee early precincts reporting 49. Ballots cast total 46,283. Voter turnout total 56.43%. As of the time that they were saying that's leaning blue, red, Trump/Pence, 26,443 to 18,740. Trump leading in both early voting and election day. Also with Mark Kelly and Martha McSally, 26,000 and 19,463. And this was at the time where they were saying the state was leading Biden, by the way. Because I watched it go and turn blue last night. That would have been about 10:45, and it was staying blue the whole time I was watching. And yeah, also in almost every other single race. Martin Brandon represented District 2, 25,988. District 14, this is the state races, Republicans all winning. In fact, at 9:46 p.m., this was almost entirely Republican-led everywhere in the state. So by the numbers at 9:46 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, it appears that this was still a very, very red state that was reporting as leaning blue. So I'm very curious as to where they were getting their numbers from, because they were different from what was being reported apparently by the Associated Press. So something to definitely watch along with this here as we go. I will put this PDF into the Discord if you guys want to have a look at it. And I pulled it off Twitter, and I will get a link to who put it up on Twitter as well as get it up there myself. So definitely something to look at and something to question. And if you're watching this show, then I trust that you would question everything anyway, because you should be questioning everything. All right, next one here comes from the Daily Wire. Democrat Gary Peters defends Michigan Senate seat from GOP challenger John James. So apparently, John James lost, even though he was ahead the whole night as well. But look, we found all these ballots. Look at all these ballots. This is from Eric Quintanar. Senator Gary Peters is projected to defeat Republican businessman John James in the Michigan Senate race, after Chucky Schumer poured countless dollars into the race, by the way. An outcome that would protect Democrats from losing one of their most vulnerable Senate seats in the 2020 election cycle. Decision Desk HQ projected Peters would be the winner of the Michigan Senate seat around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with NBC News joining in on the projection shortly after 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Fox News has also projected Peters as the winner. Data from the Decision Desk HQ shows Peters with 49.61% of the vote and James with 48.5% of the votes as of 8:10 p.m. Eastern Time, with over 95% of the votes counted. James, who lost a Michigan Senate bid in 2018 to Senator Debbie Stabenow, showed a promise in his most recent attempts to unseat a Democrat-held seat. According to Cook Political Report, Peters was the second most vulnerable Democrat senator up for re-election at a time when Republicans were tasked with defending nearly twice as many Senate seats as them, a factor of the GOP's 2014 Senate victories. Only one other seat was more likely to flip Republican than Michigan's, the Alabama Senate seat currently held by Doug Jones. The New York Times called the seat for Jones' opponent, former Auburn football coach Tommy Tuberville, on election night. Wait, hold on. Let's make sure we find more ballots. After Tuberville's victory was projected, Senator Susan Collins was projected to hold her Senate seat against her Democratic challenger, Sarah Gideon, who has since conceded the race. Maine Senate seat was considered a toss-up by Cook Politico. So, looks like at this point, they're going to hold on to the Democrat seat. I think that pulls them to 50-50 in the Senate right now. Dead even heat, but I would have to go back and check the Senate race. But there is also fuckery afoot in Michigan, as we see. From DHT News, not a green check verified source, but definitely something to listen to. Because O'Keefe, every time he's been sued, he's won the lawsuit. So he's got a pretty good track record of being accurate and winning his lawsuits when people are trying to challenge what he has to say. I mean, no NewsGuard verified source is ever going to touch James O'Keefe's story, but I feel he's got enough of a track record at this point that we can at least say possibly. But let's see what DHT News has to say here. USPS whistleblower tells Project Veritas he was ordered to backdate late mail-in ballots on Michigan. DHT News. Wow. It's kind of early for me to be losing my train of thought here, but mail-in ballots in Michigan. DHT USA News from Caden Garrison. An anonymous tipster with the Postal Service in Michigan has alleged that his supervisor ordered mail carriers to backdate ballots mailed too late to be counted. Project Veritas revealed, and the service is reportedly investigating. A self-professed mail carrier, whose voice and identity have been disguised by the conservative muckraking operation, claimed that he and his colleagues were issued a directive to collect any ballots we find in mailboxes, collection boxes, and outgoing mail in general on Wednesday, and separate them at the end of the day so they could hand stamp them with the previous day's date. An interview with Project Veritas posted on Wednesday night. The ballots retrieved from general mail circulation were then put in express bags and to be sent wherever they needed to go after being stamped. The tipster alleged under Michigan law, mail-in ballots must be postmarked by 8 p.m. on Election Day this past Tuesday in order to be counted in the 2020. I apparently disconnected from everything when OBS locked up on me, so I do apologize for the interruption there. We will get that figured out, but let's have a listen to what Veritas had to say on this one.
Tell us where you work.
I work in the Traverse City Post Office, more specifically the Barlow branch.
Your boss told you and your colleagues something that shocked you this morning. What was it?
We were issued a directive this morning to collect any ballots we find in mailboxes, collection boxes, just outgoing mail in general, separate them at the end of the day so that they could hand stamp them with the previous day's date. Today is November 4th, for clarification.
Who is your boss, and what is his title?
Jonathan would be a direct supervisor, yes. As of right now, he is the opening supervisor for the Barlow branch post office. So and this is anecdotal, a carrier down in another office said they watched the postmaster doing it. If it were just a typical day, it would be clerks doing it up at the distribution center.
So 8 p.m. Election Day, November 3rd, the Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
To separate them today so they could mark them with yesterday's date and send them through the express system to wherever they needed to go.
This appears to be an attempt to circumvent Michigan law and allow late votes. And you said there was a hamper where letter carriers were supposed to leave their ballots. Where are the ballots now?
They were putting them into express bags to go to the distribution center. In regards to a hamper, there was a standard hamper that all letter mail is supposed to go to, and they had a tub next to it that we were supposed to put any ballots collected today into.
Yes. What made you come forward?
That's sketchy. I don't like sketchy. It screams corruption. Also, knowing the post office's leanings politically, it didn't seem quite right.
What is your message to other postal workers who see things like this?
Report it. How are we supposed to have any integrity in this country if we are just going to let things slide based on a scaling issue?
Are you afraid of retaliation against you?
I've had whistleblower policies backfire on me in the past, so yes.
We'll have to reach out to Jonathan Clark for comment. Hey, is this Jonathan?
Yes.
Hey, I'm a reporter with Project Veritas, James O'Keefe here, and I have information that you guys have been stamping ballots with the previous date, November 3rd. He just hung up the phone on me. He just hung up the phone on me.
All right, so that is what's there. Now, of course, not green check verified, Veritas, and there still has to be an investigation to go through this. And once again, one of the things that I pointed out at the top of this was the fact that, Veritas has been sued left and right. James O'Keefe gets sued every time he puts one of these things out here, and he always wins the lawsuit mysteriously. So I can't say whether or not the whistleblower is honest, and that's one thing with whistleblowers, as I've always said. Look back and see what the facts are rather than just what the whistleblower has said, because they could go in either directions off of this. Now, I want this particular whistleblower to be right, because the thought of a President Harris scares the ever-loving fuck out of me. But on the other end of this here, I do know that I have to get this question, but it should be enough that the DOJ should be able to jump up and look into this and say, hey, what the fuck's going on here? Especially given the fact that the USPS is a federal government branch. So we will see what comes out of this, if anything. I know a lot of people like to jump out and say that Veritas is completely discredited and nobody should ever listen to them, but it's definitely something to look into. Let's keep going. I do apologize about the drop in stream for a second there. OBS seems to have locked up on me, and that dumped the stream out when it stopped transmitting data. Then it kicked it up out of the internet. So PayPal link below. We got to build a new computer at some point here, which I'm starting to get pieces for. All right, from the Daily Wire. Outrage erupts after windows covered up in Detroit ballot count. Officials release statement on alleged reason behind decision. From Ryan Saavedra. Windows inside the TCF Center in Detroit, Michigan were covered up on Wednesday, sparking widespread criticism as chaos broke out while ballots were being counted. There were some pretty tense moments inside of this room. Basically, some poll workers or some of the challengers told us that there was not equal number of Democrat and Republicans in this room throughout the entire process. Fox News correspondent Mac Finn said it led to some shoving matches or some fighting matches, and that's when police had to step in and escort people out of the absentee ballot counting room. I took these people's claims to the Secretary of State here in Michigan. A spokesperson tells us in part, these are poll challengers who have legal avenue to address any legitimate concerns regarding any rules they claim were not followed. Finn continued, now in the midst of all that chaos, there were some windows back here that allowed for observation that were covered up with paper and postboards that led to even more confusion and outrage as protesters pounded on these windows, demanding the ability to see inside. Finn added, I talked to Detroit's city attorney a short while ago, and he tells us he ordered some of the windows to be covered because some of the poll workers nearest the windows were concerned that the people were filming them or information on the ballots. So that's what they want to say off of that here. Let's see what Ryan Saavedra has to tweet out from Tucker, it sounds like.
So news organizations have called the state of Michigan for Joe Biden, but we're seeing a lot of strange things happen in that state tonight, including poll watchers apparently being blocked from witnessing the count. And that's not a good sign. Matt Finn has been covering from an absentee ballot counting center in the city of Detroit, and he joins us tonight. Matt, good to see you. What do you see?
Tucker, today there are some pretty tense moments inside of this room. Basically, some poll workers or some of the voting challengers told us that there was not an equal number of Democrats and Republicans in this room throughout the entire process. It led to some shoving matches or some fighting matches, and eventually police had to step in and escort people out of the absentee ballot counting room. I took these people's claims to the Secretary of State here in Michigan. A spokesperson tells us in part, quote, these are poll challengers who have a legal avenue to address any legitimate concerns regarding any rules they claim were not following. Now, in the midst of all that chaos, there were some windows back here that allowed for observation that were covered up with paper and posters. That led to even more confusion and outrage as protesters pounded on these windows, demanding the ability to see inside. I talked to Detroit City Attorney a short while ago. He tells us he ordered some of the windows to be covered because some of the poll workers nearest the windows were concerned that people were filming them or information on the ballots. And right now, Detroit, Tucker, tells us that it has about 1,500 absentee ballots or less to be counted, and then all of Detroit's absentee ballots will be counted. Tucker.
Matt Finn, thanks. Detroit, Michigan, one of the most mismanaged places in the Western Hemisphere.
All right, so that is what they have going on over there. The windows are covered because people are walking in, they're banging on the windows and intimidating, which I don't want to see violence come out of this, of anything, of any sort. Property damage, violence, people getting hurt, anything else like that. I don't want to see anything else like that, but the people do have the right to make sure, to hold their government to account, to watch, to make sure they're doing everything right. There's a fine line here. I'm not going to try and pretend that there isn't, but there's a bunch of other stuff going on with this, and, well, let's look at the tweets before we move on into other stuff. So this is a tweet that came out. Britt from Tweets by Britt was the one that brought this up here, and this is... Now, keep in mind that Michigan has been called, I believe, for Biden at this point. But as of right now, this is coming from the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. So this isn't what's getting reported to the AP. This is not what is getting reported out to... It's not what's getting reported out to Fox News. It's not what's getting reported anywhere. This is what is showing from the Secretary of State as of updated 11/4/2020 at 8:14 p.m. Updates every 10 minutes. County is 79 of 83. So with the race being called for Biden currently, we see President of the United States, Democratic, Biden Joseph R. Votes 1,930,924, percent 46.56%. Republican, Trump Donald J. 2,152,747, 51.91%. Let's move forward on this one here. This is at 3:14 p.m., so this is earlier, but still yesterday, 11/04/2020. Biden, Joseph R., 1,773,404 votes, 46.16%. Republican, 2,010,030 votes, 52.31%. Brit, last night, just checked again. Let's see what this one says. 2020 Michigan election results, date 11/3/2020, type general, unofficial, updated 11/04/2020 at 9:37 p.m. Updates, 10 minutes. Democrat, Biden Joseph R., 2,117,677. Republican, Trump Donald J., 2,318,065. This is coming right from the Secretary of State. The website is up there if you guys want to go check it yourself, mielections.us. So I don't know what this means. I don't know what information is getting out to your Fox News, your Associated Press. But there are some thoughts that I have on this, and I want to talk about them quick before we move on. And this is, I told Seawall at the beginning of the night, even before we went live, I told Seawall that a lot of this was going to happen. And I told him that this was going to happen for a reason. Because I knew this was going to happen, at least in my state of Wisconsin. I can't tell you what has been happening around the country forever. But I know what happens in Wisconsin, because it's happened for 3 elections in a row. Now, I think I've been Mandela affected by the Karofsky race, because the last result I looked it back up. I verified what the respondent over on Twitter, the information that she put out to me, and that did show a fairly commanding lead for Karofsky, which I've got my own theories on that, because remember that Bernie Sanders had no clear path to victory, and yet he stayed in for the Wisconsin election. So I do think that that was a big part of getting progressives out, excited to vote for Bernie, so they'd also come out and vote for Karofsky. I do think that was in play, but the gubernatorial race in 2018, neck and neck the whole night, and then all of a sudden 3,000 absentee ballots with a gluing error found at 1 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, the day after Election Day, in Milwaukee, mysteriously, all 3,000 of them for Tony Evers, bringing him up above the recount position of 1.1%, or 1% is where you can request a recount, so that brought him up to 1.1%. Enough that they can't have a recount. I've seen it happen here. And I told everybody I talked to, the Common Sense American, Seawall, John from the Generational Cap, everybody I talked to about this, I said, do not expect Wisconsin to be in play. Because at the 11th hour, they are going to find just enough ballots to bring it up to 1.1% in favor of Biden. At the 11th hour, at the very last second, they will find enough to bring it up to 1.1%. Where they can't order a recount anymore. And sure as shit, they did. They found enough to bring it up to 1.1%, at least what's being reported to the AP. Now, I haven't looked to see what is happening in our election from our Secretary of State. I don't necessarily trust our Secretary of State, but I don't know what's being reported to him or what he's reporting out on this, but I see it happening here in Michigan. And I look at what's happened over the last year. Joe Biden is corrupt. We can sit back and look at all this weird sex stuff of Hunter Biden on his laptop, but we also look at the fact that there are emails and messages and Bobulinski coming out saying that this happened, and I will go under oath and say it. I will go under oath and say it. there is something that is going on with Joe Biden. I don't know what the allegation is. I don't know what the charge is. He would have to be arraigned in a court of law so he could be tried by a jury of his peers. Innocent until proven guilty. But remember what happened with Trump. What the SDNY has been saying. That they can't prosecute Trump as long as he is the president. And I will get to that in just a second. But right now there seems to be a concerted push to make sure that nobody can go out and investigate Joe Biden either. For the same reason, that he can't be investigated for something he did in the private sector or even in a previous office while he's holding the highest office in the land. Don't think that went unnoticed by me. The fact that that was fairly well established while Trump was president, and now it seems very, very, very concerted to make sure that Joe Biden gets in. And on top of all of that, the guy's not going to make it health-wise through the end of his term. He is going to die in office. He's on borrowed time already. Putting their first female president in on top of the fact that Joe Biden then is protected from prosecution for the rest of his natural life. Furthermore, and this is the big one, this is the one that's the most important to me, because I've always said that we need to get more people like us into office. We need to run more everymen, more people like you and me, more people like you people watching, like me sitting here talking into the microphone, who work for a living, who know what it's like on the ground, who can represent the people because we are the people, not the DC elite establishment machine. We are the people. But the SDNY is sitting right now waiting with criminal charges to President Trump. Not necessarily criminal charges that could put him in prison for the rest of his life, but I've got a feeling that a lot of this could get amped up anyway, because right now with Trump, it is not about the fact that he's the president. Yes, he knows stuff about them. But with them pulling the levers of power, it's very, very unlikely that he could ever see any of them see the inside of a courtroom. Hillary Clinton is never going to see the inside of a courtroom, no matter what. The elites are protected. But the biggest thing that I see out of this is getting Trump in, getting him prosecuted or persecuted, whichever term you prefer, and making an example out of him so you and I, the rest of us, are dead afraid to ever come up and challenge the establishment machine again. He is up there to be made an example of at this point, and we cannot let that happen. Has this stuff been going on forever? Oh yeah. Protecting the establishment, making sure their candidates get in when they get in. Oh, that's been happening forever at this point. This is probably one of the first times we're actually ever going to get to see it and watch it and see what happens with it. So this is one to watch. And this could invalidate elections in the past too. If this comes back, Tony Evers coming out and saying, oh, well, this happened in my election too, so we'll see what happens there. But honestly, there are a couple things at play in here, and I have to wonder, especially with the concerted effort to get Biden in, if there are maybe even some other people in the government, in the Lincoln Project, on the Republican side, on the Democrat side, that also had their hands in the cookie jar, that stand to fall hard if Biden actually gets investigated by the Justice Department. Follow the bouncing ball, people. All right, that's enough rant for that. Let's keep going. All right, from NPR. We'll have to see what's being said in here for that. Trump wants a recount, and this is how they read the news over at NPR. This is NPR. Trump wants a recount in Wisconsin. How would it work? This is from David Shaper and Braxton Booker. All right, we can't read it like that, though. Not long after the Associated Press and other news outlets declared Wednesday that Democrat Joe Biden had won Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes, the Trump campaign announced it would ask for a recount in the state. The margin separating Biden and Trump is what is one of the nation's most contested swing states is roughly 20,000 votes, or less than 1%. It was the absentee ballots in the cities of Milwaukee, Green Bay, and Kenosha, of course it was, added to the county totals Wednesday morning that appeared to have put Biden on top. Wisconsin is part of the so-called blue wall that Trump shattered last election cycle when he narrowly won the state by less than 23,000 votes in 2016. The state does not have automatic recounts. However, under Wisconsin law, a losing candidate can file a sworn petition along with a filing fee. Which, what the fuck is Trump going to do? Sell another building? He'll go off and sell a building and he can cover that fee, whatever it is. Should the Trump campaign follow through on its promise for a recount, it will be on the hook to pay for it under the rules enacted by a Republican legislature and governor a few years ago. The state will only pay for a recount if the margin of victory is 0.25% or less. The Trump campaign said Wednesday that there had been reports of irregularities in several Wisconsin counties, which it said cast doubt about the validity of the ballots cast. The campaign later clarified, without providing evidence to support their claim, that some ballots in heavily Democratic Milwaukee County had been cured in red pen, arguing that poll workers and not voters themselves corrected or added information to the ballot itself, spokesman Tim Murtaugh said. We estimate that 15 to 20% of the absentee ballots in Milwaukee County were tainted in this manner, Murtaugh said. This is also only an estimate because our legal volunteers were prevented from having meaningful access all of the time. And as a person who votes in Wisconsin, I can tell you how it works because it's like when you took those little standardized tests when you were in school. You go back, you fill out your ballot form, you stuff it in the machine, or you mail it in and have somebody else stuff it in the machine. I've got problems with that myself off of this here, but once again, and as I just mentioned on the rant that I just went on, we have a situation now where we're looking back, and all of a sudden we're mysteriously finding more ballots. I'm a little surprised they haven't brought enough forward to get it up over the 1%, because that gives the opportunity for a recount. And, I mean, if the orange spending spree can go off and sell a building, fund his campaign, and go back and file for the recount fee, under 1%, I would do it. Hell yeah, if I had a building to liquidate, or an airplane to liquidate, or some other hard asset that I could go and liquidate and go pay the money for, I would go up. And if I had that gravelly voice like Trump, I would go up and say, here you go. Here's the money. Go recount them. There's fraud. It's the worst fraud. Hell yeah, I would. But we will see what happens off of this. I am interested to see, honestly, if the recount goes through, if they decide to come back and watch this, if they turn around and start looking at some of these other elections. I'm very interested to see. All right. But we'll see what happens off of this here. It appears that it's coming. TMJ4 has an idea of what changed in Milwaukee that flipped Wisconsin blue. This is from the Milwaukee NBC affiliate, which if I had terrestrial television, I could probably go and watch over in that room over there, but terrestrial television is for chumps. This is from Rebecca Klopp. The race for the White House changed overnight in Wisconsin from Tuesday to Wednesday. The absentee ballots counted in the early morning hours flipped the state from red to blue. No, you don't say. As many people went to bed Tuesday, President Trump was leading in Wisconsin. Now it's former Vice President Biden. Part of that change came from the city of Milwaukee's central count. That is the central location where all absentee ballots are counted in the city around 3 a.m. Election workers finished tallying 169,000 absentee votes. Those results were then loaded into flash drives and taken by police escort to the Milwaukee County Courthouse and handed to Julietta Henry, the Milwaukee County Director of Elections. We wanted to make sure that every person who voted in this election, their ballot was counted, and it takes time to process them. And we are pleased to say we are at 100%, said Henry. Those city votes were added to the county. Then the county sent their totals to the state. That is why Biden vaulted into the lead. At the last second. You don't say. The Wisconsin Election Commission's Director Megan Wolf later explained why the shift from President Trump leading to Biden Many have seemed so sudden. In Milwaukee and other major cities like Kenosha and Green Bay, absentee ballots can be counted at a central location, but they cannot give any results until all those absentee votes are counted. It is a process prescribed in law that allows jurisdiction to centrally count their absentees, said Wolf. You have to report the polling places and then add in all the central counts when all the absentees are done being counted. However, the election results are not official yet. There is still a process that makes sure each vote is correct. That has to first happen at the county level through a process called canvassing. So at this point, they're going to go through, and well, it's almost over at this point, but go through and tell a little bit about what's going on with canvassing. But yeah, that is one of the things to keep in mind off of this as we look into this, that it is, the results are fed electronically by a USB, which, okay, there's the possibility of chain of command there as well. Something else to watch for, but none of these machines are ever connected to the internet either. Not a single one is connected to the internet, which is a good thing, because you connect stuff to the internet, it gets opened up to hacking. So there is integrity at that side of this, but now what happens with the flash drive when they bring it over to the state? Well, that's something to watch and be concerned with, but we will see what happens with this here. I do anticipate there be some sort of recount, and we will see what happens off of that. Kind of looking forward to my state being up in the news and possibly being the deciding factor in the election. All right, next one here comes from WGN9 out of Chicago. Speaking on other presidential candidates, here's the shocker of the morning for you guys. The big shock, the biggest shock that there is. Kanye West receives at least 61,000 votes in the 2020 presidential election. Shocker, you guys. Kanye West didn't win the presidency. I know. Everybody in my audience is disappointed. Let's see what WGN has to say. From Nathaniel Puente. As election officials work on finalizing results that will determine who will be president of the United States for the next 4 years, one candidate is poised for a 5th place run. Independent presidential candidate Kanye West. Dude, he's not independent. He's from the birthday party. I take the birthday party very seriously. Received more than 61,000 votes across 12 states where his name appeared on the ballot. With added vote totals still expected in the coming days, there's a chance that this number could slightly increase. The rapper received at least 1,000 votes in each of the 12 states and peaked with 10,216 votes in Tennessee. West finished in 4th place at the polls in 9 of the states and 5th place in the remaining 3. The 61,387 total votes cast for Kanye West placed him in 5th place overall in the election, well ahead of the 6th place finisher, Gloria La Riva, who received 49,380 votes in the 7 states that she was present on the ballot. While West outran the other independent candidates in the running, he did fall short of the 4th place finisher Howie Hawkins. The Green Party candidate unofficially sits with 322,990 votes. With the impending results, West appears to concede the 2020 presidential election on Twitter. As the page reloads, and now I have to go back and find my place here. There it goes. On Twitter, and looked ahead to 2024. Kanye 2024. There's your first image right there. West's presidential hopes date back to 2015 when he hinted that he would run in 2020 at the MTV Video Music Awards. West stayed true to his promise and announced his candidacy for the presidency in July of 2020. Although he missed the deadlines to appear on most states' ballots, he was able to secure a position on the 12 states across the country. Look, man. All right. I'm going to let you finish. But I think this other person deserved a shot to be president. Okay? So, yes. Disappointment of the world. Kanye West isn't going to be the president. All right, let's keep going. I've got a little bit more on that from Rolling Stone. Maybe, if the page ever loads. PayPal link in the description. Help me get my new computer. All right, from Rolling Stone, Kanye West concedes self-serving presidential bid. that's not biased or anything, threatens 2024 run. From John Blistein. Kanye West's first stab at the presidency ended with him reportedly accumulating about 60,000 votes in 12 states where he appeared on the ballot. The rapper appeared to concede his long-shot bid graciously on Twitter Tuesday night, posting a photo of himself in front of a map of the U.S. behind him, along with the caption, Kanye 2024. As Vulture notes, he'd previously tweeted, but then deleted the objective funnier statement, Welp! Despite the loss, West had himself a personally fulfilling election day. On Twitter, he documented his visit to the polls in Park County, Wyoming, where he had to write his name in as he hadn't been able to get himself on the ballot in his current home state. Alongside a video of him feeding his ballot into the machine, West wrote, "The first vote of my life. We are here to serve. We pray every servant leader of the world." According to the Park County Elections offices, write-in candidates such as West received 115 votes, comprising 0.69% of the county's total votes as of publication. It is unclear how many of those 115 votes, though, were for West or other write-ins. So, yeah, I'm disappointed. We're not going to have Kanye 2020. He's not going to be the president this time through. And I thought for sure he had a chance. All right, let's keep going here. From NPR, once again, because this is how they read NPR over there. While people are driving, they get this calm, soothing voice. And I don't know how they don't fall asleep while they hear this calm, soothing voice. But this is how they read NPR. This is from Philip Ewing, by the way, who probably would also read this article in this kind of voice if he read it on National Public Radio. All right, let's see. Russia's interference in this year's presidential race relies heavily on disinformation and agitation as the active measures of 2016, but less so on cyber attacking targeting state election infrastructure. FBI Director Christopher Wray told the House panel on Thursday, foreign nations can select from many weapons when targeting a democratic election, but two broad strategies boil down to changing minds or changing votes. Yeah, I mean, if I can buy an election for a couple $100,000 in Facebook ads, if that's all it costs to buy an election, hey, why am I not buying it? Russian influence mongers spread disinformation, turn up the volume on controversy, and generally try to pit Americans against each other, including with fake accounts, and support for what they consider marginal candidates, or for some groups not to vote at all. Natasha, we make sure they don't vote. Okay? No. We buy Facebook ad. That change everything, and we make sure they don't vote. Natasha, come with me. The goal is to make some Americans so angry they support a preferred candidate, and others so angry and disaffected that they don't vote for another. Or just to put put ourselves at each other's throats. Seems to be the bigger goal of this, not necessarily get one candidate elected over the other. The U.S. Intelligence Committee has revealed its assessment about which candidates are being supported or opposed by certain foreign malefactors. Russia is working against former Vice President Biden, Democrats nominee, having supported President Trump's election in 2016. No, he supported the fucking underdog. All right. Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU, also targeted a number of state election systems in 2016 with malware that could have been stolen or altered or sabotaged the way that they operate. Ultimately, no votes were changed, but the FBI and Department of Homeland Security and state agencies were put on their guard about the prospect for disruptions or other problems from cyber attacks. So, yep, it's Russia. It's always Russia. All right, let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, John Leguizamo responds to Trump's Florida win. Dead to me. Lemmings drive their golf carts into the ocean. from Paul Bois. This is the guy that played Luigi in that terrible Super Mario Brothers movie, by the way. To give you an idea how much shit this guy's got on the shelf. After President Trump picked up a much-needed win in the state of Florida on Tuesday, actor John Leguizamo likened the citizens to rats that should drive their golf carts into the ocean. "Florida is dead to me, man. Let the lemmings drive their golf carts into the ocean," tweeted the actor. President Trump won Florida handily on Tuesday, 51.2% to 47.8%. It was largely carried over the line by Cuban Americans and Venezuelans, according to the exit polls. In the election overall, more Latino voters supported President Trump in 2020 than they did in 2016. Biden also lost support among Latino voters in Georgia and Ohio, important states to capturing the White House, reported CNN. The former vice president was up only about 16% points in Georgia and about 24 points in Ohio, compared to Clinton's margin of 40 percentage points at 41 points in Georgia and Ohio, respectively. However, according to Leguizamo, such Latinos in favor of President Trump are like roaches for raid. But this is the party of tolerance and love, and the party that stands against racism. Keep that in mind. Thanks, Leguizamo, for showing us exactly how you feel about racism and people who don't have white skin in this country. Let's keep going. From the Hill, Kansas elects first transgender person of color to serve in the state legislature. From Jordan Williams. Kansas voters elected Stephanie Byers to its state legislature, making her the first transgender person of color elected to the state legislature, as well as the first transgender legislature across the Midwest. Byers is projected to win over Republican challenger Cindy Howerton, according to the Wichita Eagle. Preliminary results from Tuesday night show Byers with a 54.4% of the vote over Howerton's 45.6% in the state's 86th House District, which encompasses parts of Wichita. Anise Parker, the president and CEO of LGBTQ Victory Fund, said in a statement that Byers shattered a lavender ceiling in Kansas, and its impact will reverberate well beyond the borders of the state. Okay. I might be wrong here. And correct me if I'm wrong. But this is supposed to be the first transgender legislature of color. Dude looks pretty white to me. I don't know, man. But, once again, none of that really matters to me anyway. If Stephanie Byers is the best person to make the decisions of the laws for the area encompassing Wichita, Kansas, then absolutely elect her. Honestly, I don't know what the problem is. I know people will come out and say mental illness when there's a thought or a conversation to be had about that, but honestly, and I've said this about homosexuality, about transgenderism, and even about skin color. The melanin level in your skin, who you fuck, and how you pee makes no bearing or difference on me whatsoever. Do your job, do it properly, or get your ass voted out. The other stuff is just details. I don't care about any of this, but of course the Hill is going to make a massive deal about this because the new victim group is making strides. Now we have to go find a new victim group, which I gotta wonder how much fucking crazier they're going to get at this point too. But we will see what happens there. Coming up from NBC News, Sarah McBride to become the first transgender state senator in U.S. history. From Dan Avery. Sarah McBride won over her Delaware Senate race, posing to become the first and only openly transgender state senator in the U.S. and the country's highest-ranking transgender official. I hope tonight shows that an LGBTQ kid that our democracy is big enough for them too, McBride 30 tweeted Tuesday night after the election was called. As Delaware continues to face the COVID crisis, it's time to get to work to invest in policies that will make a difference for working families. She easily defeated Republican Steve Washington to represent Delaware's 1st Senate District Incumbent Democrat Harris McDowell, who did not seek re-election after 44 years, had endorsed McBride. The 1st District covers Bellefonte, Claymont, and parts of Wilmington, the state's largest city. I'm going to wonder what Fritz has to say about that, because that would be an interesting one to see and listen to Fritz's ideas. He's pretty open-minded, and like I said, it's as long as you do your job, I don't see where how you pee is any bearing on anything. I know, like I said, some people will make the argument for mental illness, and we can absolutely have that discussion. We can absolutely have that discussion. But as long as you can make the laws in a fair and equal representing manner, pursuant to your state's charter or constitution, I don't see how you pee has any bearing on your ability to do your job. So we'll have that conversation. We'll absolutely be having that conversation coming up. All right, I've got one here that was brought to my attention from Brady Leonard over on Twitter, who gave me the tweet from Andy Nyo that says, officers from multiple agencies are following Antifa closely in downtown Portland right now, following the mass violence earlier. So let's see what the video there is, and then I've got a couple articles on that. And then we'll do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate and head on out of here.
Walk away. Let these fucking fascist pigs deal with us. We don't want you here. You're signed up to protect and serve us. Yeah. There's a dumpster behind you. Dumpster. Yeah. Walk away. Let these fucking fascist pigs deal with us.
In Portland once again here. Let's see if we can shed any light as to why. From Politico. Riots declared in Portland as rioters smash windows. Governor Kate Brown activated the use of the State National Guard to help local law enforcement manage the unrest, according to the sheriff's office. A riot was declared in Portland, Oregon, and protesters took to the streets in Seattle on Wednesday as people demanded that every vote in Tuesday's election be counted. Hundreds were protesting in both cities against President Trump's court challenges to stop the vote count in battleground states. That's what it is. So they're going to destroy their own city in a state that's probably going to kneel down and suck them off to protest what's happening in my state. Oh, this is clown world. How did we get to this level? How did we get to this clown world? The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office around 7 p.m. declared a riot after rioters were seen smashing windows at businesses. In the interest of public safety, Governor Kate Brown activated the use of the State National Guard to help local law enforcement manage the unrest, according to the sheriff's office. Brown said previously that she would keep the state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and police officers under a unified command into Friday in Portland to handle protests amid uncertainty over the winner of the U.S. presidential election. The Oregon National Guard had been on standby. Brown's order places law enforcement agencies under the joint command of the Oregon State Police and Multnomah County Sheriff's Department, which allows those agencies to use tear gas if necessary to quell unrest. Oh my God! It's Trump's America! They're using tear gas! Mayor Ted Wheeler, who is also a police commissioner, banned the use of tear gas by Portland police earlier this fall after concerns about an overly aggressive response to the unrest. So, yeah, they're rioting in Portland again. Well, I guess they never really stopped, but they're doing it once again. All right, then I got last one here from KTLA5. No, I don't want to sit back and watch this. Robocalls warning voters across the U.S. to stay home prompt an FBI investigation. From the Associated Press once again, voters across the U.S. received anonymous robocalls in the days and weeks before Election Day urging them to stay safe and stay home. An ominous warning about what election experts said could be an effort to scare voters into sitting out the election. The FBI is investigating calls that seek to discourage people from voting, a senior official at the Department of Homeland Security told reporters on Tuesday. Authorities wouldn't offer details. The brief calls, which featured a computerized female voice, made no mention of the election, but given the lack of details and the timing, the message was clear, according to Dan Dowdy, a Kansas City resident, who received the robocall Tuesday morning. It felt like voter suppression. Hold on. Hold up. Hold the fuck up. By the way, this has officially moved into the thing that I hate territory. So we're going to hold off on this. We're going to do a thing I like quick and head on out of here. Thing that I like today is this whole election thing has brought out numerous inroads to groups that we didn't think would come off of here. I mean, I'm a Federalist, which a lot of people would say makes me a statist. Possibly it does, because I believe that Californians have the right to decide how much government that they want, and that should not affect how much government that I want here in Wisconsin, or how much government a Wyoming person wants over there. I want near total anarchy in my life. But a person in California wants full-on government control. And yet, we're still finding these inroads. We're still finding these things, and people are being brought together. Now, the silver lining in a Joe Biden victory, and this is something I tweeted back to Clint from Liberty Lockpod yesterday. Silver lining, if Joe Biden takes the victory, is the fact that sitting behind Joe Biden, waiting for him to die, is Kamala Harris, a police officer who's going to be pulling the strings and ready to crack down the authoritarian boot on anybody who stands in the way of her political ambitions. Which means that right now we are standing poised to see liberty becoming very popular. And poised to sit back and see a weakened GOP that needs a figurehead. And we can now sit back and try to run into the GOP circles and try and pull the GOP into a liberty party instead of the Jesus authoritarian party that it's been in years past. And liberty is popular. I mean, we're sitting at a point right now where under another GOP president, under another 4 years of Trump, we'd have a slow boil. 4 years to sit back and try and figure out what we do the next time. We won't lose all our liberty. It'll get eroded away slowly, but it probably won't die. Or Kamala Harris, where Kamala will sit back and snap liberty's neck. And we will be under the iron boot of a police state from a woman who sought power by any means necessary. And the thing that I like is that, yes, liberty, small L libertarians are poised and in position to make inroads into the GOP, to make them be the antithesis of authority, to make liberty popular again. And I like that. And even if the election gets overturned and Trump is in, he can't run again. And the progressives are going even further into the authoritarian state. So yes, it might be time to try and force those inroads. I'm almost pissed that Amash had his little temper tantrum last year and decided that he needed to run away from the GOP, because it's time. It is absolutely time to make inroads into that party and use it to combat the growing authority of the left. So that's the thing that I like today, is the fact that the opportunity is there to make the inroads. And we can bring people together, like my fascist friend Sewell can come together and have the similar goal as my anarchist friend Ron Helton and my small L libertarian friend Tweets by Brit, and me, Federalist, and my full-on anarchist friend Jessica Green. We can all come together with a common goal to sell liberty and defeat the authoritarianism of the left. So that's the thing that I like today. And the thing that I hate is this, right here, what I was just reading here. The fact, now going back into the article that I was just reading right now, the fact that we have been heard, stay safe, stay home, since February. Definitely into March, but since February we've been hearing the whispers of this. Stay safe and stay home is the thing that we've been hearing all the time. And now, because it's an election, because there is an election going on right now. Now is the time that they want to say that it's voter suppression. It wasn't voter suppression when we have to change the rules at the last second for mail-in votes. It wasn't voter suppression then. But now it's voter suppression because people are saying stay safe and stay home. Don't go to the polls, whatever you do. Stay safe, stay home. This goddamn double standard that they've been putting out here for the media, it's okay unless it affects the election and it affects what might happen to our Democrat overbears. Right up until November, it's okay to send out a message and say stay safe and stay home. But now it's a crime. Now they have to investigate it. That's the thing I hate today. All right. My rant is over at this point. I've got to get myself off to work here. You guys have got to get yourself off to work here. It's time for us to go and check out the Daily Ignoramus for the day, but we will see you later on tonight for more Ed's World Gaming, and we are not talking politics during Ed's World Gaming. It's not going to happen. But we will see you then. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow for more Contemporary. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.